The Dallas Cowboys now have another weapon on offense. They have acquired wide receiver George Pickens in a trade with the Steelers. George Pickens had 59 catches for 900 yards, 3 touchdowns this past season. Heading into the final year of his rookie deal, he will be teamed up with CeeDee Lamb for another weapon for Dak Prescott here. Taking a look at some of the wide receiver trades that have gone down this offseason here. Commanders getting Deebo Samuel, Texans Christian Kirk, and then, of course, the Steelers, DK Metcalf, and now George Pickens going from the Steelers to the Cowboys. So we're going to talk about wide receiver duos. A lot of movement when it comes to the wide receiver room in the NFL. Let's bring in Tyler Sullivan here. You made a list. You gave us 5 through 1. We're going to go from the 5th to 1. Let's start with number 5. You have Puka Nacua, Davante Adams with the Rams. I know our producer loves Puka Nacua because he won him his fantasy league. And then Davante Adams coming in. Why are they worthy of 5?
Yeah, both those guys can win you your fantasy league. I mean, you look at Davante Adams last season. He went on a run where I think he probably was a factor for you if you had him in your fantasy team, and that was on the New York Jets. He's now on the Los Angeles Rams in an offense run by Sean McVay. He has opposite of Puka Nacua. You have Matthew Stafford as his quarterback. So for me, this is quite the upgrade. Even going from Cooper Kupp to Davante Adams, this is quite the swing in terms of talent at this stage of both of their respective careers, even though Davante Adams, a little bit long in the tooth, still an impact player. I mentioned in the final 14 games last season, over 1,000 yards receiving. I expect that to get a lot better now that he's in a Sean McVay offense, again, with Matt Stafford as his quarterback. And you said it earlier, Puka Nacua, the guy's just really good at being a wide receiver in the NFL. Every which way you look at it, yards after the catch, separation, all of that stuff, he is legitimately one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. And so you put those two together in that type of an offense, it's going to be scary in 2025.
Many would argue that the top receiver in the league right now is Justin Jefferson with the Vikings, and you have him and Jordan Addison coming in at number 4. Jordan Addison did have somewhat of a down year for him this past season. Is that why they're sitting at 4 and maybe not a little bit higher?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can make the case for Justin Jefferson to be the #1 wide receiver in the NFL. The guy has been on a historic run, one of the best, if not the best, to start a career in terms of receiving yards, receptions, go on down the list. The guy is just an absolute cheat code. But if we're talking about tandems now, we're not just talking about who's the #1 wide receiver in the NFL. You got to look at Jordan Addison now. And now he's been very productive in terms of finding the end zone. 10 touchdowns per season, 20 over the first 2 years of his career. So that's nothing to kind of turn your nose at, but he's yet to have a 1,000-yard season. So to me, that kind of brings the ceiling down, if you want to call it that, a little bit for the Vikings. Now, I do expect him to be a really, really strong year 3 boost candidate. Of course, they have J.J. McCarthy coming in as their starting quarterback, and it's still a fantastic wide receiver duo. But again, I have a little bit of trouble pushing them a little bit further for a guy that hasn't had a 1,000-yard season yet.
Maybe we can see those numbers go up just a little bit. He had 875 last season. Let's go to number 3. We're talking about the top wide receiver duos in the NFL right now. 3, the Cowboys. We saw the trade go down today. George Pickens is now there along with CeeDee Lamb. What is it about this duo now together that has you putting them at number 3?
Yeah, call me a prisoner of the moment. It's fine, but I absolutely love this tandem. You have CeeDee Lamb, who is, again, a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. The guy basically averages 100 catches and 1,300 yards receiving a season, and now he's going to have life a little bit easier because he finally has a running mate opposite him at the wide receiver position in George Pickens. And one of the things that I love about this trade for Dallas is the upside. I think we look at this and say, okay, well, George Pickens, we know who he is, you know, quality #2 wide receiver, but I actually think he's going to kind of rival into that 1B standpoint. I know we talk a lot about these wide receivers in terms of, okay, is he a 1, is he a 2, is it a 1A, is it a 1B? I think he's going to firmly be in that 1B category, because if you look at what he's been able to do in terms of statistical output over the course of his career with Pittsburgh, he was doing that with Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Justin Fields, the ghost of Russell Wilson. Not exactly elite quarterback play, and he still has been able to produce, has a 1,000-yard season. He now has Dak Prescott as his quarterback, who is by far the best quarterback that he's had so far in his career. So I think that the sky's the limit for George Pickens in terms of his production. And if CeeDee Lamb just continues to be who he is, that's quite the duo.
Look, it's a fun thing for Cowboys fans to get excited about, and they should. Chris was giving me a little bit of, what do you call it?
Guff.
Guff?
Yeah.
Is that the word?
Yeah.
Anyway, about the Cowboys earlier. Let's move on to number 2, and this is your Super Bowl winning duo at the Eagles. We have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and I think what makes this tandem so incredible is just the opportunities that they create for Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and clutch, too. I mean, you go back to that Super Bowl, both of these wide receivers found the end zone. So, you know, a lot of last season, and rightfully so, was a lot towards the Eagles' running game. The brilliance of Saquon Barkley, the tush-push with Jalen Hurts. But when this offense is moving at its best, it's when these two wide receivers are highly involved. I don't care if they're reading books on the sidelines, baking cookies, whatever, these guys produce. And you see it here. You have daggers in the Super Bowl. Devontae Smith, I think, is one of those 1B wide receivers in the NFL. I think if he was on any, most other offenses in the NFL, he would be your true number 1. But then you have a guy like A.J. Brown, who's just such a physical, dominant force, is just, so imposing, but also so fast and so finesse as a player. They really can do it all at the wide receiver position. So again, having these two guys under contract for the long term is just, it really does seem unfair for the Philadelphia Eagles to have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and then we're not even talking about that backfield with Saquon Barkley.
I still remember when that A.J. Brown trade went down. All right, coming in at number 1 here, they are also the highest paid wide receiver duo in the NFL. We're going to the Bengals with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I think what's disappointing about having them at number 1 is we haven't seen the success from this team that we've wanted, but why are these two worthy of being in that top spot?
Well, you look at Jamar Chase, the dude just won the Triple Crown at the wide receiver position, leading the league in receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns. And then you have a guy like T. Higgins, who is, again, in that 1B category. He's not a number 2 wide receiver. He is someone who, had he hit free agency, would have been paid like a true number 1, and he already is. He's making $115 million on this extension with Cincinnati, being paid like a number 1 wide receiver. You have Jamar Chase being paid as the highest non-quarterback in the NFL. To me, they are such a dynamic duo. And you say, yes, of course, they haven't been able to win a Super Bowl together. I put that more on the defense. Again, this Cincinnati Bengals defense wasn't really able to do much of anything other than Trey Hendrickson leading the league in sacks. It wasn't because of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. The fact that they've kept those guys, though, is huge for Joe Burrow, huge for a possible rebound for Cincinnati. Again, the defense will still have some questions, but the one thing we won't be questioning is those wide receivers.
And healthy. Hopefully that team can stay healthy this season. Notably off your list, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I do want to ask you, though, if you're looking at the Jags, Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr., could they potentially start creeping up there as a top receiver duo if they use Hunter that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot wait to see that offense. If we do have, Travis Hunter, we don't know necessarily, right? We don't know if he's going to major at a corner and minor at wide receiver or vice versa. But if he is legitimately on the field enough that we can evaluate him as a true down-to-down wide receiver, and you put Brian Thomas Jr. opposite of him, that to me is scary. He was special last season as a rookie, and now we're getting a Heisman Trophy winner and just a rare talent in Travis Hunter now injected into a Liam Cohen-led offense. That's going to be box office.
I'm not going to say Duval because I can't say it the right way. Tyler, thank you so much. We'll chat with you soon.